Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Christopher's going to be teaching you a beautiful Hawaiian tune that has quite an interesting history. So the lyrics for this song were borrowed from another song written by Queen Liliʻuokalani. Now most of us ukulele players will recognize her as the composer of one of Hawaii's most popular tunes, Aloha Oi. So you can click that link to check out our fingerstyle tutorial on it. I'll also link it in the description box below. But back on track, let's talk about this tune. So the lyrics were derived from another song written by the Queen, and then the music was composed by Charles E. King, who is an incredibly brilliant composer in his own right, and a very important figure in Hawaii's history as well. So kind of a cool little backstory, taking lyrics from the past and then adding new music to it. Now let's talk a little bit about this song as a fingerstyle piece, because I did get a chance to play through it last night. And I gotta say that this is a really, really great piece, I would say, for the seasoned beginner, budding intermediate player. So if that's where you're at in your fingerstyle playing, this should be a good challenge for you. Now let's talk a little bit about the lesson. So in this video, Christopher's going to be teaching you how to play the entire song. But if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, that's going to be available at this link right here. Or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com. You can do a search for the song's name in Hawaiian, or you can also type King's Serenade, which it's commonly referred to as well. That'll pull up the lesson too. Now also on that page will be the interactive on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tabs scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Chris to teach you how to play this, and then I'll catch you at the end of the video.
Hello friends, this is Christopher Davis-Shannon with Rock Class 101, and today I'm going to walk you through an arrangement of Imi Awo Ia Oi, or the King's Serenade by Charles E. King. This is a great 3-chord song that gives us an opportunity to see how simple chords that we've been playing since the first day we picked up the instrument are able to be moved all over the fingerboard. Let's get started. Before we get into the heart of the tune, we're starting with a little 4-measure introduction, mostly over a C major chord. And before we even pluck the first note, we're going to set up that first chord voicing, and that's going to be the C on the 8th fret of your E string and the E on the 7th fret of your A string. Use your second and first fingers for this. It's going to make your life easier down the road. Now rhythmically, we're going to have 2 8th notes on beat 1, and those are going to be our C string and our G string. And if you're playing low G, it's going to sound a little bit different than me, but it'll still sound just fine. So sound like this. So we have 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to repeat those first 2 notes. But while we're doing that, slide your fingers down. So we're now playing the 7th fret and the 5th fret. Use your ring finger and your first finger. And that's getting us to a G chord. So we have C and then G with the same preceding 8th notes. Let's listen to the first 2 measures. And then we're going to play the same exact open notes, C and G. But now we're going to walk up. So we're starting on the C major 7th, 3 and 2. This is all on the E string and A string for the first few lines of this tune. And then up to an F chord, 5 and 3. That's an A and a C. And then back to that G. So let's listen to that 3rd measure. The rhythm changes a little bit. It's now 4 8th notes and then a quarter note. So 4 fast notes and a slower one. We're going to hit the C, and then we're going to slide this shape up to the 10th fret. So it's going to be 10 and 12, and hit that and hold it out. So that's going to be another C major chord. We've already had these 3 iterations of a C major chord just in the opening measure. So let's listen to this introduction, then we'll try it together. Let's try that much together. 1, 2, 3. The verse and chorus of this tune share most of the same melodic content. So once we get past the first 8 measures of this, we know most of the melody of the song, and we're just going to work on how to do different accompaniments around that to keep it interesting. So our melody starts out with 2 pickup notes on beat 3, 2 eighth notes, and starting out with our regular old C chord. Again, we're sticking on just the E and A strings for the moment. And then it's going to go to G7th, 1 and 5 right here, an F and a D. That's a G7th chord, so we get... Where are we resolving that to? It's just another C major chord. 3, a G, and 7, an E. And then on beat 2, we're going to hit an open C string. And here's our fun move. We're going to take this C chord and slide it back a fret. And then slide it back in. But when we slide it back in to the C chord, we're not going to articulate it with our right hand, so that we just hear that sound a little bit more faintly. And this gives us a more legato feel, a more connected feel. Instead of hearing, we're hearing, it's nice and soft. It's just much more smooth than we would have if we pluck every note. And then we're going to hit the E string on the end of 3. So let's listen to this with the pickup first measure. And then we're just resolving that down to good old C major, right? Again, just the top 2 strings. Hit our open C on beat 2. We're going to keep doing that throughout this first verse. And then we're going up to a new chord. This is an F major chord, but it's just 5 and 8 on our E string and our A string. And then right back to that C major that we started on. And it's really the same lick, right? We're doing that slide again. We still have that extra note on there because there's no lyric there, so we wouldn't play it in the melody in an instrumental version either. And then right back to our regular old plain vanilla C, open C on beat 2, walking down some individual notes, 7, 3. So let's listen to just this pickup and then the first 4 measures of it, and then we'll continue on to the first phrase of the melody. It sounds like this. And then where are we going from here? We're going to a G7th chord. We've seen this one. 1 and 5. We used this in the pickup before, but now we're going to slide it on up. So we're going to go 1, 5, 3, 7, 5, 8. And we've seen all these voicings before, right? G7th, C, F, and then we're going to come down to C major 7th, which we already saw in the introduction. But we're going to slide it up this time, the first C major we played. And then we're going to come down to G. I know it's a lot of movement, but I'm going to play these first 2 measures of this next little bit, and I just want you to watch my hands and see how little movement we actually need to make this nice and slow. It's going to sound like this. Right? Not so bad, just all these little shapes sliding around on the fingerboard. Now when we resolve to this C, we're just going to hit some open strings. Just fill in a little bit because this is just a held note, but we want something going on here, something to propel it forward a little bit. So now let's try the entire first verse of the tune together nice and slowly. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. The second verse is mostly the same, but we're just going to add a little bit to the arrangement, just a couple more notes just to keep things building as we go throughout here. And that starts with our pickup notes. Instead of going, we're going to change our pickup notes. We still have our same melody, but we're going to reharmonize it a bit. So we're actually going to start on 5-3, an F major chord, and do this little chromatic passing tone. It's kind of like an F minor 6th or a G7 flat 9 here. Who knows unless there's a bass player playing with us. I just think of it as a chromatic passing chord that sounds really nice. So we're gonna go 5, 3, 4, 5, and then we end up on that same C major chord, 3 and 7. And all we're going to add to this first measure is one extra note from what we just did. Remember, we're hitting our open C string on beat 2. Well, now we're gonna add an 8th note before that, which is going to be our G string. So we're gonna go, right, just adding one extra note in here, and then we go right back to our C. Now this next measure, measure 14, is going to be just a little bit different because, again, we're filling in a bit more space in the arrangement. So as we hit our regular old C chord, so what's happening here? Hit those top 2 strings, open C, hammer on to a D on the 2nd fret with my middle finger. And then we're going to add that open G in there. And again, this is okay if you're on low G as well. We just want to make sure that any of these notes that we're adding now, because the melody's the same, are really far in the back because they're just accompaniment. So when we get up to this F chord, the same as we played before, that's important, right? Because that is our melody here. That's important. So we need to make sure that we're bringing out the melody. So you really need to learn this first verse very well and get it in your ear so that you're not overcompensating on these extra accompaniment notes. So in measure 15, when we get back to this C here, same exact thing as we did 2 bars before that. Right? Same melody, so we're going to do the same thing. And then measure 16 is just a little bit different. So as we land on our plain C major chord, we're not going to use our ring finger this time. And we might ask ourselves why. It's because we're always looking ahead in the chart and thinking about where we're going to go. And we see that we're going up to this C right here and then coming down. So our first finger, if we're using it for our C major chord this time, we can slide it right on up. So we go, then down to our F major chord here, right, that we already played, 5 and 3. Listen to that measure. And where's this go? It goes to our G 7th chord. But we're now going to pedal a C underneath, or just keep this consistent C going underneath to build a little bit of tension once we get to measure 17. So we can see that the voicings that we have in this measure are ones that we've already seen. We have our G7, but we're just inserting this C before it, right? Remember we had our walk up? We're going to do the same exact thing, but we're just going to insert a C in between every one. So we're going to play the same exact lick, but it's just going to be a C in between. This isn't really that much different from the first one. Let's listen to this build up one more time. We can try it together. C major 7th. And then resolving to C again, but we're going to add just a little bit on the end. There's just a couple extra lyrics here. So we C, and then we're going to walk up this G7th. Right? We're going to slide it up chromatically, 2 and 1, and then just strum C major. So let's listen to that whole last little bit there, nice and slowly. Let's try that second verse together now. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So now we're into the chorus of the song, and as I mentioned previously, it's pretty much the same melody and harmony. So we're just thinking arrangement-wise, how can we build this up a little bit so it's not the same thing every single time? So we're still starting up here, and we don't even have our pickups. We're going to start, instead of just focusing on the top 2 strings, we're going to strum full chords now. Just really mostly at the beginning of each measure, just to accentuate some of these parts. But we don't have to do anything because this is a C major chord. And C and G are in there. So all we have to do is put down the same exact fingers we were using before, and then just strum. Everything else in the measure is the same. This should look very familiar to you. So we have one change that we need to make in the next measure. As we come down to C, absolutely fine, right? We have that C on beat 2, we can just strum. But then remember, we have an F major chord here. So this G, especially if you're on low G, presents a pretty big problem. On high G, it's kind of not the end of the world. On low G, putting the 9th in the bass is maybe not the best idea. So this is one of my favorite F major voicings on uke, actually, as we play 5 open 5 8. Again, focusing on that C pedal point, which was really popular in Hawaiian music. These early arrangements make good use of this pedal point C. We strum it, we're still hearing that C coming out. So let's listen to just that measure as we come through. So we go. See how full that sounds? Let's listen to just those first 2 measures now with these full chords in here. And we know it's going to be repetition, right? We already played this part. We already played all of that. We're just strumming through all of our strings now. It's really the only difference when we get to this first little bit of the chorus. So remember, our melody for the next part goes, it's that ascending line. We're going to keep the melody the same, but we're going to change the harmony here. We're going to go F6, G diminished 7th, G 7th. So we go 5 5 5, 7 6 7, 7 7 8. Melody's the same, new harmonization. And then we come down to C major 7th. Slide that on up to our C major chord. Again, just strumming through everything now. Down to our G chord that we've played before, but now since we're adding in this C, we have that pedal point C in there, resolving to C major. So let's try that, and let's just listen to it actually first and go. So it's our little lick on the end here, where we end on the C. You can land on your first finger or your second finger. It doesn't matter too much. But then if you're on the first finger, you're going to bring it back like this. We're filling some space with some hammer-ons here. So we'll strum C on beat 1. And then we go 2, 3, 5. And then our little hammer-on, C, D, and then open G, open A here. Let's hear that whole measure because it's a little funky. And then we have a pickup into our next one. I just want to show you this real fast before we play these previous 8 bars together. Because remember we did this? That little chromatic lick? We're going to do the same thing, but with that C pedal point underneath, it really changes the sound of it. That C going through the whole time. So let's hear these first 8 measures of the chorus together. 1, 2, 3. Now the next little bit should look pretty familiar. Again, we're taking what we did in the verse, that build up, we're adding the open G in there. And just adding a little bit of extra movement in here. But now again, we're strumming through on beat 1 just to get these full chords. We have our C chord, and then G, C, that same chromatic movement we've been doing the entire time, down to C. This measure should look very similar to you, something we did earlier. Remember, we're going to need this F voicing with that pedal point C. This arrangement's all about the pedal point C in here. And we have just this little campanella thing here in bar 32. It's a C, and we're going to come down. And we've seen that move before, right? C to F. And then we have this movement going up again. F6, G diminished 7th, G 7th. It's the same exact thing that we saw, resolving to C major 7th, because the melody's the same. All of this are things we have seen in the arrangements already. Repetition, we're strumming full chords. And then let's look at the last couple measures here, because this is actually the difference. The thing that we haven't seen before is coming up. So we're going to go up a C6th chord on here, which is the tuning of our instrument. So it sounds like it just is right on here. So we're going to go C, E, G. We're going to get the A on the 5th fret of our E string. And then the C on the 3rd fret here. You hear that's our C6th, right? And we're going to end on that C major that we started. I just want to play that last measure for you, and then we'll try the last 8 measures of the tune together. It's like this. Let's try that together. 1, 2, 3. I hope you all have enjoyed this lesson, and just pay close attention to the names of the chords as you're going through this. This song is really just C, F, and G 7th, but we have an opportunity to look at how the notes in those chords lay out across the entire fingerboard.
All right, guys, so this week's ukulele lesson was a ton of fun. It's a very beautiful tune and so relaxing to play. It just really puts a smile on your face to play a tune like this. Now, I did want to give you a friendly reminder that if you do want to get the tabs to print off and keep for your records, that was available at this link right here, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com, do a search for the song's name in Hawaiian, or you can type the King's Serenade and it'll pull up that way. Now, also on that page was the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer, so you can literally hit play, watch the tab scroll across in real time. You can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.